Welcome back to Raiden Reviews Podcast. I'm Jordan Martinez.
And I'm Scott Stevenson.
And today we're talking about BeetleJuice 2.
All right, let's get into it. So this is, Tim Burton. It's actually a sequel to the movie. So it's not a prequel. It's not a remake. It's actually a continuation of the original story, which is pretty cool. What did you think?
Yeah, I really thought there was a lot to like about this movie. I thought the cinematography was freaking outstanding. Michael Keaton back as BeetleJuice. Yep. He actually looks like the makeup made him look like identical to what he was back in 1988. I think is when they did the first one.
All of them, every character looked still in that world, just a little bit older, but like the last movie just picked up right where the other one was, like in the same world. Even the town, everything, going through like the same bridge in the same area. You felt like you're still back, you're right back into that world again. Yeah. All the character, everything, it didn't feel like so many different sequels just feel like completely different world, completely different everything. Yeah. I think Tim Burton did a good job of like keeping that same structure.
I think Tim Burton is absolutely a genius. I love many of his work. I think he has what he has is like his own brand, and it's a brand of like kind of weirdness, kind of gothic, kind of spooky. I wouldn't say scary, but like spooky kind of brand, kind of like off-putting kind of brand. Anyways,
like the Forever Halloween kind of theme.
And if you haven't seen, BeetleJuice, he's kind of like a little bit like Deadpool in a way. He's a little inappropriate. He's politically incorrect.
Yeah, it kind of breaks the fourth wall. Talks to the audience every once in a while.
Yeah, he's very much like Deadpool in that way, or Deadpool's like BeetleJuice that way. He's kind of gross. He's kind of like this dead fat guy that kind of just he is definitely a character, I will say that, and he's really fun to watch. And actually BeetleJuice to me was the best thing about this movie, and if I were to give one criticism of it, I would say there was not enough BeetleJuice for me. I was always wanting more BeetleJuice. When he left the scene, I'm like, well, come back. I want to see his funny antics. I want to see his magical, supernatural bullshit that he does. And I felt like
you're saying that you didn't see him, but I feel like within the first scene, he's already showing up.
For me,
in her nightmares.
Yeah, so I'm going to try not to spoil this movie. I think we're going to not say much about the spoiling or try to keep the main plot points for you guys to watch. But essentially, in the first and second act, you see very little of BeetleJuice. You see a cameo from Danny DeVito. Yeah. You see the bad girl. You see the world of BeetleJuice, and you see BeetleJuice a little bit, but you don't actually see him doing the BeetleJuice stuff that you came to the movie to see, which is what's called the promise of the premise. For me, I felt like
it's more like he's haunting her. He hasn't like come into the world of the living yet.
Yeah, like I understand they don't want to blow their wad in the first act or the second act, but I felt like, to me, there's way too much exposition between the main character, Winona Ryder, her daughter, and her fiance that's a gold digger. And it's like, to me, I don't fucking care. I want to see BeetleJuice throwing up his guts and impregnating and doing all these comic book kind of quacky things that he does and we know him to do in the first one. And I just felt like they dragged it off for a little bit too long, and I wanted to see the land of the living and the land of the dead come together more quickly. Now the movie really feels like it starts picking up in the third act.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did a good job of like laying the groundwork. I know it's not like right into BeetleJuice, but they did a lot of stuff, in my opinion, that was like paid like fanfare to the first movie and like helped build the framework and also like help you understand what's going on and what has happened from the last one into where they are now. It doesn't just like jump right into like action with BeetleJuice, because you have to understand like, okay, the dad died. You have to understand the grandpa's not here anymore. What happened to these people? So they have to explain like what happened? Where are we? What's the backstory? Also, they show a backstory of BeetleJuice, which was really cool. I didn't actually understand that BeetleJuice, as a human being when he was alive, was a gravedigger, and it was cool that they like he tells like the story of himself, like meeting, his ex-wife or whatever and becoming a gravedigger and getting poisoned and killed. And the whole story of that I think was cool because it was never in any of the other Beetlejuice stuff before. Like he was always like this dead guy. You never saw him like as a living character. So I thought that was cool to like that they actually included that. And I don't feel like that was like a waste of the movie. I felt like that added stuff. I also like the animation when when the grandpa
he dies
when the grandpa dies. It's like a completely different type of Tim Burton animation, almost like clay figures. That goes from like almost like a Nightmare Before Christmas, like clay figures. And they're on the airplane, and like his plane's going down. He's getting eaten by a shark, and it's like
that was awesome.
It's like almost a complete. It reminded me of like what's the one, like almost like a
Coraline,
or like a
Chicken Run,
World of the Dogs or something.
What is it, Grummet or Walt? Anyway,
yeah, like very Wes Anderson sort of like animation. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that scene was absolutely brilliant, and that same clay animation they use for the dang worm later on in the dang movie.
And then the worm is a similar type of
I'm not saying that it's all like not entertaining. Is what I think I'm getting at is I just want more Beetlejuice. He's charismatic. Michael Keaton absolutely steals the show in every single scene he's in. You lock on to him, and all the powers and cool stuff and his backstory. Like you said with the grave digging stuff, that was awesome. But what I didn't get a lot out of it was the fact that his wife, spoiler alert, she poisons Beetlejuice, and I guess that's how he dies. But we don't understand really why she's in this cult and why she killed him and why she's, we understand why she's angry at him. Okay, I can get that. But her backstory is not very strong, and we don't really know why she has this radical power, and just there's so many things that are kind of unexplained with her character. And then she's not even really important until pretty much like the finale of the movie. So I just felt like it was underdeveloped in that respect. So later on in the story, you get through a bunch of exposition. She meets this guy and she likes him. And by the way, there's a really cool shot at the tree. It's probably the best shot of the movie is when they're talking in this tree. There's like the sun that comes.
She's about to crash, or she's like riding her bike and like, I'm going to get away from the parents. And then it's like, oh, swerve. Oh, okay, we almost hit a car. Oh, swerve. And we almost hit another bus. Oh, swerve. Then there's another thing. Oh, swerve. Now there's people walking. And then, oh, swerve. And it's like she had so many chances to hit the damn brakes and just like stop the bike. And it was like almost that like made the comedy of like, oh, you could have like stopped, but then you didn't. And then you go again. You could have stopped, but then you didn't. She crashes through the thing and into this tree to meet the kid. And then that was like the coolest scene just because the way the tree was shaped is like straight out of like the Tim Burton like world, the way that it's like curving around and all
like
this
Sleepy Hollow, there's a lot of Easter eggs in this movie. I felt like that was the Sleepy Hollow tree. And the actress that plays Macaulay Culkin's mom in Home Alone, there was a ton of reference to Home Alone in this movie. When she turns around and she says, "What?" in the
Kevin?
same way, like she's talking to Kevin from Home Alone, or when she's standing in line at the afterworld place.
Very much like her at the airport and in the Home Alone movies, like racing to the front, like, don't, I need to get to the front.
In Home Alone 2,
so
or I'm thinking 1 too, she does that as well. Anyways, she did a lot. She was really funny in this movie.
A lot of Easter eggs of all kinds of stuff. Also, like the dog in this movie is very similar to the dog in like Nightmare Before Christmas, I feel like. Also, like the main antagonist girl is a lot like Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas. The way she's like stapled together, like very similar like type of character.
That's right.
Very Tim Burton, kind of like meshing all the characters together in this one. It was kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh, Addams Family too. When the hand is moving.
We see like Cousin It or Thing or whatever it is. And then like Jenna Ortega has like her own little dance scene, very like much like Wednesday. So it's kind of like meshing different worlds, different movies together, and it was like the people who kind of notice it and appreciate and pick up on it. It was kind of cool to see those like nods to other movies.
So you had a problem with essentially the bike scene, right? When she's riding the bike and she freaking goes through the fence and all this crap.
Yeah, it was just funny. Like she had so many chances to stop,
Yeah, and for me, I had a bigger problem with the mom when Beetlejuice comes back and it's like the worst thing in the world, and she has all this stress and anxiety and she's scared of Beetlejuice and she's like, I gotta leave right now. But then freaking Jenna Ortega is like, oh, I gotta go see this guy I just met yesterday at a treehouse, and she's like, okay, we can stay. I'm just like, what? Like, I know this is Beetlejuice. I know this is like in the movie I'm not supposed to take completely seriously.
Yeah.
But there's certain things like that actually take me out of the film. Like, I understand, like, I guess I'm siding with the ghost and the premise and this and that, but it's really just like common sense. And if the character is so scared of Beetlejuice and she'll do and she's telling everyone not to say Beetlejuice and don't say his name, and she's like, you know, it's like the end of the world when he comes back, and then she's like, yeah, you can. I'll drop you off at this random kid's house. It's just like, I know the plot needs it to happen, but I just wish there was better ways of them to like mend it, you know, in a way.
I guess so.
So those little things right there kind of threw me out of the movie.
So we're talking about Jenna Ortega's character. What is her name? Do you know her name?
No.
You heard it many times throughout the movie. What's her name? I was trying to pick up her name throughout the whole thing. So these are all the different ways I heard it pronounced throughout the whole thing. Ashtray, Asterix, Aspirin, Astera, Akira. What's her name?
Her name's Jenna Ortega.
No,
okay.
I mean the character's name was so funny. It was like,
yeah.
Akira.
Yeah, Jenna Ortega's always great. Her and Tim Burton, I feel like they make absolute magic together. Wednesday was a great show. And she plays a character very similar to Wednesday. She has this kind of stoic attitude and this kind of, you know, a little bit of an angry feistiness to her. And she's really good at that in this movie. You can really feel her disdain towards her mother because of her father's death. And then they tie that back into the end of the movie. But a lot of these moments, although, you know, the cinematography is great and it's a fun movie, just don't really hold any emotional value, unfortunately. So, spoiler alert, she meets her father at the end, and he's in the end of the afterlife or whatever. It just doesn't feel emotional at all. It just feels like, oh, it's a plot point. Oh, okay, it just makes sense. And it just feels like a check in the box to me. And even the finale, how they got rid of the crazy woman who steals people's souls and this and that, it all happened like within a flash of a second. And we're talking about getting rid of like the main antagonist of the story, and she's killing everyone.
Power and everything.
Yeah, she's like sucking people's soul, and they're turning into like these little toads, and they're all scrunched up. And
she kills Danny DeVito in the first scene.
Yeah, she's like pretty much like the bad girl in Deadpool. You know, she's able to like pretty much just snap her fingers, and you're freaking dead. You know, and then she meets Beetlejuice, who has a lot of power, and he's super scared of her. But she's able to be, you know, killed within the moment of, it seemed like within like 1 minute. And we won't spoil it, okay?
Yeah, but we know that the arch enemy of Beetlejuice is the sandworm. And if she's more powerful than Beetlejuice, then obviously the hierarchy would be the sandworm is the only thing they can take her out, right?
It was done. It's not about the fact it was done. It was about how quickly and how easily it was done. And it's like we're building up this big fight, and I just felt like we got cheated a little bit out of that character.
She was trying to get to that book the whole time, and there was many times where like she couldn't get it, or she couldn't talk, or she was like, you know what I mean? They were taking the book away from her throughout the movie, and that was like the key to like defeating her. So those were the hurdles or the obstacles that she needed to get over to be able to defeat her.
Oh, let's go with the kid. So the kid, essentially, we find out he's a ghost. Okay, spoiler alert. And he's getting Jenna Ortega to sell her soul, and essentially there's an agreement she signed that she didn't know about. And Beetlejuice just twist of her wrist just takes care of him. And you know, it's kind of funny. And it is funny. I will say it's a funny scene.
It catches you off guard. Yeah.
It catches you off guard. And so, you know, I didn't really think he was like the big bad antagonist. So I'm like, okay, whatever, you know. But then when we come to the girl who's like killing everyone in her wake, like with nothing, I just wish there was a bigger climax
like
to
fight
that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a bigger fight. It all happens within a matter of a minute. And it just kind of feels like you're deflated a little bit.
Yeah, it was almost like the wedding scene was like too over the top of like a musical, and not like a conflict battle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was more just like in the first movie, like they gave like the nod, like they brought the choir out and they're singing like the Tally Man song, like "Come Tally Me Banana," you know. Like there's a lot of that in the first movie
Yeah.
of just like over the top, like musical, everybody
Yeah.
being like taken, their spirits are like taken and they're like out of body experience, like singing these songs, like they can't even control it.
Yeah.
So like they needed a scene in there to like harken back to the first one, and they had to kind of like cram that scene in the end to sort of give the fanfare, but that should have been more of a battle rather than a sing along.
Yeah.
But they had to kind of do both at the same time, and it was kind of like a rush to the end.
Yeah, exactly. I felt like a lot of these plot points in Beetlejuice didn't go anywhere. And William Dafoe is a great character. He's really cool. He's funny. He's like essentially like a cop in this world, but he was an actor. Kind of reminded me of Fallout in a way. You know what I mean?
I feel like the best part about his character is he has like a secretary that constantly brings him black coffee every time his character arrives, or is any mention
Yeah.
any mention of him. It's like he has this secretary that just like pats up his ego and like turns and just like has a coffee
Yeah.
for him. And every scene it's like he says something, here she is, boom, coffee. And it's like on cue every time. And
Yeah.
I was like, that's hilarious that they just went the extra mile to do that little plot point.
And it
in
got
there.
funnier as you keep seeing it and seeing it. And seeing
Yeah,
it.
it's just like
Yeah.
they made a point to be like, oh, here you go.
But you have to ask yourself seriously and be like, yeah, he's great. He's fun to watch. I mean, it's William freaking Dafoe. But it's like, if he wasn't in the movie, would the movie had even changed? And you know, I can't even think of like one thing he really did that really pushed the plot.
Yeah, he was
Or
like supposed to be like solving a crime or whatever, but like
his
there was no
is-
stakes. Like he's like, oh, you broke some sort of arbitrarily like law,
Yeah,
which
and
got
that-
her out of the contract. But it was like, even if that did, I guess they needed that to like have the
that was
contract
also
broken.
stupid. That was
But it was dumb. Yeah, there was like no stakes really. It was like,
that was
why do I care? Yeah.
I almost forgot about that. But
And they
you're-
have these like ghoul cops that are like this like squad of cops that are dead or like coming after them. But it was like, it wasn't scary.
they were fluff.
Yeah,
And
yeah. It didn't seem
There's a lot of
like
fluff.
they were gonna do anything to him.
There's a lot of fluff in this movie. They're probably the biggest ones, even though William Dafoe's awesome and the cops are kind of cool and this and that. The Soul Train dancers, I mean, we saw them once and it was like, okay, that's kind of cool. Then
Big
you see them
dancing.
again.
Yeah, big
and then
dance.
You see them again. And it's like they're always there. And it's like,
We get it. It's yeah, it's funny, right?
okay, like how many times do we need to revisit this? Like, okay, it's a Soul Train. There's soul dancers there. You know, the contract thing at the very end was just completely hollow. It's like there was no setup for that. It was just like, whoa, out of the blue. Okay, the contract and this and that. You signed the contract, but then you violated the contract and then you did this and blah blah blah. It's just like
They had this rule book, and it was just like, oh, everything in the rule book. Like, if you didn't read the ghoul rule book, then like that's the
It
all
was
these
a
all these
cop- it was-
all these loopholes that get around everything.
it was cheap writing.
Yeah.
It was bad writing. And the main antagonist deserved a lot better showdown at the very end than to like within 5 seconds be eaten by a fucking worm. You
Yeah,
know,
we
I
also don't understand how she got her powers. Like,
That's what I said
like
earlier.
she's poisoning everybody. She's a cult member.
This is what I said earlier. I said we don't know enough about her. We don't know her motives. We don't know why she's a cult member. We don't know how she got her powers. Like, I wish we would have expanded on Beetlejuice's backstory, like almost like a little bit of a prequel, you know, because he is why I came to the movie theater, and I'm not getting enough Beetlejuice. I need more Beetlejuice. Now, Beetlejuice is to me like a mixture of The Mask and Deadpool. And that scene at the very end had a lot to like about it, even though we've been ripping it apart. But I love the part where you put the truth serum in the fiance, and he's spilling out all this freaking truths, and
It was very much like The Mask. Yeah.
it was exactly. It reminded me of The Mask. Now, all those antics, I want to see. I don't want all this talking and fucking exposition, and I don't need 3 or 4 scenes of the fucking ghost character that ends up dying right away. He's irrelevant to the storyline. Beetlejuice is what we want to see, and I felt like we spent 50 minutes until we really got into the Beetlejuice, before the Land of the Living and Beetlejuice got into it, and that scene was really good
I
with the
understand
baby.
why. I understand why they do it though, because in the first movie, right, the whole setup for Beetlejuice is the parents, right, and the parents go to the underworld and they're dead and they're like there with like the stuff in their face, and then they get the big noses coming out.
But you're
and-
making a big mistake. Not every sequel has to be like the first. Terminator 2, which is one of the greatest sequels of all time.
I'm just saying, I understand why they did it.
They gave you Schwarzenegger because they realized in number 1 you liked Schwarzenegger, and he gives you a whole movie of Schwarzenegger and a completely different story. And so it's a storyline surrounded by Schwarzenegger. In this movie, I felt like we're still with Winona Ryder, and we're with this like kind of bickering and this, you killed my dad and this and that. It's like I don't really care that much.
I didn't
care
mind that
about
story at all.
Beetlejuice's funny.
I enjoyed having the
antics.
kid in there. I like that they incorporated the kid and the family, and like seeing that he's dead, and seeing the mom and the dad come out, and seeing that they've been killed in like comical ways.
Yeah, I never said that I didn't like that scene. I said I didn't like the scene that was the fluff. That was the second scene with him, and he's with her in the bedroom, and he's like, "Hey, you know, in a couple days it's Halloween. Why don't you come back?" That scene didn't even need to exist. That was like 20 minutes of fluffing crap,
Setup.
and
It
then he
wasn't
just
20
dies
minutes.
right away. It's like he's an irrelevant character. It's just. When Beetlejuice comes and he gets called out and he has the baby and he spills his guts and that guy faints, the fiance, that was like, wow, we're finally seeing what we fucking came here to see. You know what I mean? And I know I'm not the only one who thinks that, Scott. We want to see more Beetlejuice, and they're not giving us enough Beetlejuice. But the movie's still great. I still loved it. Do you have any more other things before we give this thing a review?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about a few things.
It's getting heated here.
Well, I liked the movie. I don't know. It didn't seem like you liked it too much. Oh, yeah. So one thing I thought was really cool is the mini sets. Like they start off the beginning of the movie, and it's like, you know, some aerial shots mixed with some like FPV drone kind of stuff going over, very low light. And then it starts to like mix in some like miniatures. And there's like, you know, like the miniature shots of like the town, and it's really cool, very well detailed. And then we like make our way up to the top of the house where Lydia is like inside the window, and we go in up and through the window. And I thought that was like super cool. That was like awesome filmmaking, blending like the actual town with the miniatures, and like very, very much like Nightmare Before Christmas and like that kind of a set.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that stuff is cool. I like, that's like very Tim Burton.
Yeah.
Also like a lot of the underworld, like when you go down in like the sewer area of like Beetlejuice, where there's like the checkerboard flooring, and none of the hallways are straight, and they're all like different angles, I think is like super cool. And the lighting of like blue, there's a big theme of like blue and green. So anytime you see like ghosts or ghouls, is like blue and green. They do this in Ghostbusters too. It's like anytime there's like a ghost, it's like green or blue, like this kind of like lighting sequence. And I think that's super cool, like thematic throughout the whole thing. And also I noticed that there's a lot of different like practical lights throughout the whole thing. There's, you know, whether it's candles or street lights or pumpkins with little lights inside of them, or when we're inside of the set that has the miniature, there's all these like little tiny practicals hanging around. And they actually, I noticed that they use like a starburst filter, and then like each one of them is like glowing with little starbursts, and like it just, the cinematography of like the lensing choices, the filtration that they use was like really incredible, and like really just adding a lot of dimension to like every single frame. Every frame was like a very deliberate choice of both the production design and the cinematographer of like adding practicals in and just making sure that they're built into every set. Even like the kid's bedroom, I know you didn't really like that scene, but I thought it was fantastic, like visually seeing his room like completely built out with the 2 windows. It reminded me of Wednesday a lot. Like Wednesday's set, if you guys recall, is like a big like frosted window, like stained glass window, and there's like light coming in, and she has, you know, like a roommate that's kind of next door, and she kind of has like, you know, sort of like a gothic vibe and then like the pretty girl vibe. this guy's bedroom was like an Easter egg to Wednesday, the way that that set was set up. And they
Yeah.
also had practicals that are kind of built in to his room, was almost the same sort of set as her thing. And they also have her like in a girls' boarding school, very much like Wednesday as
Yeah.
well. So like I enjoyed that attic scene kind of stuff, because to me that was like, hey, we're giving a nod to Wednesday, and I loved that they included that kind of stuff, you know. And then the way the whole thing was built out, and all of the like '90s stuff on the wall and the production
Yeah, there's a
design
ton of Easter eggs.
was really cool. And yeah,
Yeah.
like the lighting, practical lighting, they like really went hard on that stuff, and it looked fantastic.
Oh yeah, I mean the lightning too. Like when every time you see lightning, there's like light blue and then dark blue and then green. It's like the way that they made the cinematography in this movie was really good, and I think it's great. But as far as for me, the plot and the writing it's just the pacing. Those are the things that just
Yeah,
I felt could have been better.
I like the way that they kind of like show their status throughout the movie. Oh, we're rich, you know, we're like artsy and rich kind of people. We drive a black Tesla, and she's taking like these like grief photos, and she has like all her like rich friends come over, and she's like taking these photos with like a Hasselblad, like super expensive like digital camera Hasselblad.
Yeah.
And like it's just like the choices that they use are like, we're gonna give them this camera, we're gonna give them that type of a car, we're gonna make them wear these type of clothes. It was just very like deliberate, and like they have like weird little art pieces all in their lawn and stuff. It was cool, like very like, you know, integral parts of their character that like kind of show you who they are without saying who they are, you know.
Yeah.
It's like by seeing what they do, how they do, and it really tells you a lot about them, rather than like saying I'm artsy and high income or whatever, you know. But I thought that was kind of cool, like how they integrated some of the set pieces and props and things like that into the storyline.
Yeah.
That was cool.
One part about the story, you know, I've been kind of maybe a little bit harsh on it, that I did really like is that her daughter did not really believe in her ghost telling.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like that was a good angle of the story. You know, that was a kind of interesting thought. It does definitely beg questions of like, you know, how could this kind of happen? If she grew up with her mom, wouldn't her mom expose her? Anyways, right? I don't know. Maybe she wouldn't expose her to ghosts.
Yeah, it was kind of weird that she like just found that power right at that
yeah,
time. Maybe she needed like a traumatic situation to happen to her in order to see the ghost, I guess, because that was like the whole thing. She like got in the big wreck and like avoided all these cars and like almost died.
Yeah, that would have been a good,
Right.
like if they would have emphasized on that and
I
been
mean,
like,
that's what happened, but it doesn't.
oh,
You don't realize that's what happened.
I didn't realize that happened.
She's riding a bike, right? She almost died. She almost got hit by a car, and then she goes through a thing. She crashes.
But it wasn't established that traumatic event is what
made
allowed her.
made her see ghosts right at that time. Yeah, because before that she couldn't see ghosts or
Well,
didn't.
how do we know? Maybe she could, but she never encountered them.
Well, she's clearly saying throughout the movie that she doesn't believe in that, right?
Well,
she
I
even
mean-
tells the ghost that she doesn't believe in ghosts, and she doesn't believe in that kind of stuff.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, how do we definitively know that she has even encountered ghosts and had the opportunity to be like, oh, wow, okay, like maybe she didn't encounter ghosts, or maybe she encountered ghosts and didn't realize they were ghosts.
Maybe, but we
There's
haven't
a
seen.
rabbit. Yeah, we didn't know for sure. That
Yeah,
that
I mean, we
moment-
haven't seen her when she's 2 years old, and we only see her right now, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
only
well,
following her in the
it's
scope of the story.
Exposition could have been like, yeah, a traumatic event could trigger the ability to see supernatural things, you know, whatever. So I haven't seen Beetlejuice in a very long time, the original one. So I'm looking at it with pretty much fresh eyes. And so I would have appreciated a little reminders of like the world building that happened from, you know, way back when. It's a 1988 film. You know what I mean? Like, I'm looking at it. I'm sure half of the audience hasn't seen Beetlejuice, you know, in a long time. It's a 36-year-old movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely a lot of young kids in the audience, I noticed.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they probably have not seen Beetlejuice, or maybe they have. They've probably seen
Maybe
it
have,
sooner
yeah.
than me. I don't know. But ultimately, that I don't think a movie that old should be hinging on the audience to totally like know the world that was built. Like, there needs to be some reminding. There needs to be a little bit of like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it is a sequel. It's like Jurassic Park. Like, there's dinosaurs in a park.
Yeah, it's
And
a simple
it
premise,
goes,
though. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah.
that's an easy premise to understand.
You don't need to
Scientists
go back and
built
like
it.
tell them like, hey, remember the dinosaurs came here?
Yeah, this is like a superhero movie. Like the powers of like I don't know.
I don't
I
know. I
like
don't
this
feel like
movie.
you forget the characters that if you've seen that movie, you know. I don't know. They brought like the shrunken head guys back into the world, that like the living world, but they didn't bring like more ghouls and ghosts
Yeah,
into like haunt the living
yeah, I would like to
like
see that.
they did in the other movie.
And you know maybe I know this is kind of like every single fucking story that's been made recently, like MCU and this and that, but maybe that they're threatening to destroy the world, and like they have to destroy this. Maybe the frickin' lady that's all stapled, the soul sucker, she's trying to destroy the world for some reason, and they have to destroy her in order to get all the ghouls back. Like
I
that
think she's
would have
not
been.
gone because people that get sent to the sandworms end up coming back. So they're probably going to be a third Beetlejuice. So this one is BeetleJuice BeetleJuice. First one was BeetleJuice. They're probably going to be a BeetleJuice. The third one, because also they left all the shrunken head guys go out into the world. Like
And
what's going to happen? You know, like
Well,
now
they're
they're in the
not
world.
dangerous. They're just like
Yeah,
idiots.
but
You
they're
know
dead
what I mean?
though. Yeah. They're
Yeah,
like
I mean,
demons or whatever.
Yeah, who cares? They're just like whatever, like big, tall, shrunken head guys. They're not like killing people. And that was another missed opportunity. Is like I wish we could have saw them interact with the population differently and seen maybe a little bit of like what they can do.
There's like one shot of the guy riding a bicycle and they get weirded out by him, but
And then they're
it's like
eating
whatever.
chips in the store and they're
Yeah.
buying all these chips. Are you ready for the?
They're more like minions than anything else.
Yeah, yeah. Ultimately, there's a whole lot to like about this film. The cinematography, the freaking fact that Michael Keaton is an amazing actor. I definitely think he's extraordinary. Birdman, tons of movies. He's obviously Batman. Michael Keaton absolutely steals the show in this movie. The only biggest downfall for me is there's not enough of him. There needed to be at least twice the amount of scenes for Beetlejuice for me. I need less Winona Ryder and her team and her family, and I want to see more of Beetlejuice. There's a lot of plot points that go nowhere in this movie. Primarily the soul sucker, the second antagonist, the boyfriend. It's just that there's not enough substance to be invested in those characters and for them to essentially go somewhere significantly in this story. So for me, I definitely recommend this movie.
You're
It's
gonna give it a
awesome.
rating? Well, should we rate it?
I would say before I give it a rating, I would say you don't need to see this movie in IMAX. First of all, I don't think it's justified. Now I would say see Alien Romulus in IMAX, Deadpool in IMAX. I just don't think you really need to see this movie in IMAX. I would say if you want to save a couple bucks, see it in the regular movie. I think I have to give this movie a 7.9 out of 10.
I would give this 8.2.
No, it's pretty close.
Yeah.
We're pretty close, yeah. Tell us why you're giving it that rating, maybe.
Well, it's not a 10. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it was okay. They're like the same sort of I mean, I explained what it was. The whole thing about the
Recap.
woman at the end, the antagonist, how the book is very like what's going on with the book. They don't explain that enough. They don't explain her powers. These are the things that there's holes in the plot. Yeah. I feel like they spend too much time on the grandpa. Like it was cool that they like touched on him a little bit, but it was like not as much about the grandpa. I don't know. I did think that it was cool that they included the dad with like the piranhas hanging off of him and stuff. That was kind of cool to like show. I don't know. It was cool to see like some of the dead characters and like how they were like in the little like waiting room and stuff like that. But I don't know. The world was too small. I feel like, even the underworld area was like too small for what it should have been. Because have you seen the cartoon? No. So yeah, it's like if you look at the cartoon, it's like a vast world. They kind of did it a little bit where like you can draw the chalk and like open up portals into different areas and stuff. But like in the cartoon, it's like, imagination is the limiting factor. They go all over the place. I don't feel like they did a good enough job of like illustrating the powers that happen in the underworld or whatever.
All right, that is it for Raiden Reviews. Come back, subscribe, like, and share.
All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one. Peace.